Hello, YouTube. We are used to mentioning breathlessly on every UFO-related occasion. The Americans have opened their secret archives, that being CIA and Pentagon, and now we finally know exactly the secrets of UFOs. People worldwide refer to Roswell with the events of 1947 or about Kenneth Arnold, who apparently saw flying saucers for the first time also in 1947. Or people talk about the massive UFO raid in Los Angeles in 1942, which ended with firing from hundreds of anti-aircraft guns of the city's air defense for unknown reasons, and so forth and so forth. Well, Russian Empire and then the USSR and post-Soviet countries do not seem to take any part in all this UFO history recorded by the Western media and preserved in their archives. In this regard, the empire and the countries that followed it are kind of zones of silence. Well, I have been doing everything I can to shatter that silence. So let me share with you a fascinating account of an alien encounter of the closest type. Both China and Russia were involved in a way. China, by the way, has been ignored too by Western media, but I think the issue is actually ignorance of that media, as well as, to a lesser extent, difficulties in obtaining the materials about alien encounters due to overall secrecy. Heilongjiang is a province in northeast China. It is the northernmost and easternmost province of the country. The province is bordered by Jilin to the south and Inner Mongolia to the west. It also shares a border with Russia to the north and east. The capital and the largest city of the province is Harbin. A small village in 1898, it grew into a modern city of Harbin following the construction of the Chinese Eastern Railway, which the Russian Empire had financed. The Russians selected Harbin as the base of their administration over this railway and the Chinese Eastern Railway zone. The railways were largely constructed by the Russian engineers and indentured workers too. The Chinese Eastern Railway extended the Trans-Siberian Railway, substantially reducing the distance from China to Vladivostok and also linking the new port city of Dalny, now Dalian, and the Russian naval base of Port Arthur, now Lushun. The administrative center of the province, Harbin City, has about 3 million inhabitants today. But Russians today can be counted, there's very few of them. And in 1898, when the construction of the Sino-Eastern Railway began, there was an absolute majority of them. Engineers, technicians, merchants, officers participated in the ambitious Russian project. Newspapers were also published, and the files, most of them have been preserved in the archives. And being a storehouse of invaluable information, time-touched sheets are waiting for inquisitive researchers. In the meantime, we have content with reprints from these publications, which were published in the emigre press of the 1930s to 1950s. And I'm talking about Russian emigre. They sometimes amaze those reprints. For example, in 2004, Russian journalist Alexander Volodyev published a fascinating account, a reprint from a Russian emigre magazine from Geneva, Голоса Минувшего. He said it was dated 1932. I did a little of my own investigation to the extent possible, and we'll speak about it after I'll present the information from the magazine. So the article in that magazine was authored by former staff or junior captain Konstantin Taparkov of the Russian Imperial Army, who revealed the following. But he prefixed it with an excerpt from Konstantin Tsiolkovsky's philosophical treatise. We are sure that mature beings of the universe have the means to move from planet to planet, interfere in the life of other planets, and communicate with mature ones like themselves. So what follows is this story about the activities of a certain classified Harbin Mission, created by the order of the Russian Emperor Czar Nicholas II, and designed to investigate the circumstances of the appearance of balloons and aircraft flying with brightly lit gondolas and cabins in the sky over the Chinese Eastern Railway on the darkest nights. So let's listen to Konstantin Taparkov. The years have not washed anything out of my memory. However, I realized that the selection of candidates for work in the Harbin Mission was not accidental. All 5 of us had aeronautical experience, mastered several types of airplanes. But even in this scenario, the sky puzzled and baffled us. Rising, taking terrible risks into the twilight air, we often noticed gray-colored, extremely noisy objects nearby. Their design, speed, and maneuverability were judged by the whitish bright, like the brightest lamps, shadows sliding on the ground. In general, it was a celestial performance from which nothing could be taken out for reports to St. Petersburg. We concealed our activities. The Harbin sky was hiding from us. However, until the encounter to which the lines of our poet Tolstoy are wonderfully applied, it seemed that I was walking through the world of spirits and I feel like a shadow of dreams. This is about the feelings that did not let us go then. The encounter, very impressive, turned out to be with a sentient, full-blooded being who called himself a leader. Now, let us pause here to note the secret mission staff apparently came into contact with people identical to us, human beings, only, as Taparkov put it, not at all with representatives of the community of terrestrial people. According to some modern ufologists, this has happened to 2% of the contactees and is quite understandable. As for the appearance of the aliens, let's listen to the words of Ivan Yefremov, enigmatic Soviet writer, scientist, and philosopher, considered by the Soviet secret police, the KGB, to be an alien, an extraterrestrial. In his novel Heart of the Serpent, his protagonists stated the following. I'm sure this is what Yefremov wanted to reveal to us. I realized that at the highest stage of development, all thinking beings must reach a state of perfect mutual understanding. The mind of the intelligent being reflects the laws governing the development of the entire universe. In this sense, man is a microcosm. Thinking allows the laws of the universe, which are the same everywhere. Any thinking being from some other world that has been able to reach the cosmos must be just as perfect and universal as the humans of our earth, and hence just as beautiful. There can be no thinking monsters, no mushroom man, no octopus man. There cannot be any other entirely different thought process, just as man cannot exist outside of society and nature. Well, armed with this weighty argument from someone who most likely was an alien, intelligent being from other worlds and operated in the USSR as a Russian scientist and suspected by the KGB who followed his activities, let us now return to the notes of Staff Captain Taparkov many years before Yefremov started his own writing. Here's what Taparkov said. We lowered the airplanes, quite keeping up with the snaking fiery reflection on the ground. It was suicidal to land on a clumsy night terrain. But we were landed, bringing a flat vast platform under the chassis. As on a tender mother's palm, we swayed on the waters of the Sungari River, seeing that a rounded structure similar to a Havana cigar case and well lit from the outside by small lamps was swaying nearby. Nevertheless, we did not dare to enter uninvited into the open passage until we were invited by friendly persons dressed in leather uniforms. Once in a compartment vaguely like the command cabin of a cruiser, where it was crammed with dials and mechanisms, we met with a tall, blue-eyed, blonde, youthful gentleman who handed us tablets, planchety in Russian, just like computer tablets, just like the iPads today. Okay. The gentleman was silent, which did not interfere with communication. His and our thoughts were alternatively displayed on the glass surface of the tablets in letters of the Russian alphabet. We learned that the comrades in arms call the gentleman the leader, and that there are 8 flying rocket ships operating in the vicinity of Harbin, which arrived from bases located on the planets of the solar system closest to Earth, but their homeland is beyond it. Even using their perfect means, it is reachable only by changing 10 generations of travelers. That is, 10 generations would need to pass piloting the spaceship to get to Earth. The leader said that they sacrificed themselves because our roots are common, closely intertwined. In antediluvian times pre-flood, their ancestors disregarded the one law for inhabited worlds: separation is death, and left the Earth. That's why we, and Taparkov meant the Earthlings, managed to develop barbarically, plunging into the abyss of wars, famines, riots, and ridiculous social policies. We objected that the Lord would not allow this. The leader replied that they knew 200 billion worlds inhabited by beings completely unlike each other, generated and controlled by common universal energy, in our opinion, by God. God has directed every world to develop only independently in order to find nonviolence and harmony. The leader and his associates are here to prevent extreme madness without interfering in military conflicts, to prevent the collapse of the Earth. Taparkov makes a reservation that the representatives of the Harbin Mission were overcome with doubts whether they can communicate with people. The leader dispelled these doubts by striking with his knowledge of the Earth culture and quoting from the words of the playwright Ben Jonson, who lived in the 17th century, now almost forgotten. Speech is the only advantage that man has to express his superiority on the earth over other beings. This is a tool of society. And another interesting excerpt from the notes of the staff captain. Mortals, we asked if immortality is achievable. The leader said that it is with us initially because we have ancestors and expect descendants, and that we are not mistaken in calling the human soul immortal. We are mistaken only by denying the possibility of a posthumous transition into different material shells in order to educate our souls, bringing them to a state of absolute perfection. Taparkov ends his notes by saying that only 3 airplanes returned from that night flight. 2, Lieutenant Oreshnikov and Ensign Khmelnov, remained on the platform. The officers were offered to replenish the extraterrestrial detachment. They agreed. These comrades of mine did not leave us in the hardships of immigration, wrote the staff captain. In a disembodied form, they mentally supported, advised how to arrange personal and public affairs, how to preserve the memory of Russia, a living Russian speech. In the night sky of a foreign land, we were lucky to see flying objects, signs that we're not living in vain. Objectively, the Harbin Mission became the first state ufological organization in Russia. It would be a great success to find documents related to its activities in our archives, stated Volodyev, and I agree with him. The Russian journalist added, this is all the more important because not so long ago, another newspaper article surfaced from oblivion called Cosmic Language and signed with the surname Taparkov. It stated language is a mirror of thought. The universe is an internal mirror that focuses and remembers the thoughts of the inhabitants of civilized worlds, which makes it possible to communicate and learn from each other. This is the meaning of being and progress. It turns out that an unknown Russian emigre made an invaluable contribution to the young science, the philosophy of ufology. See, all this is fascinating, but confirmation was and is hard to get. I did not change the words written by Taparkov and only added my comments about the 10 generations and about the tablets, just a few more. But I'm amazed by the mention of 200 billion worlds. But that may be my limitation on comprehension. Volodyev has not been active since 2010. The publication in Geneva actually ceased existence in 1928, so I think the date Volodin demonstrated in his article was wrong. But as for the Staff Captain Taparkov, here's what I learned going through the available archives. And again, open sources. Taparkov, Staff Captain of a separate Siberian officer battalion. On January 12, 1920, he was enlisted in the Guard Battalion of the Novorossiysk military base. The source was the Russian State Military Archive, Fund 39664, Inventory 1, Case 42, Case number 6 of the Guard Battalion, Sheet 27. And then I found a very interesting entry, one of the modern Taparkovs. And it said, Konstantin Leonidovich Taparkov was born in 1959 in Tashkent. His father, Leonid Vasilievich, was a journalist who worked for the Izvestia newspaper. My paternal grandfather was a veterinarian in the Chita region. Great-grandfather looks like he was from the Trans-Baikal Cossacks. Our surname is even found in this connection in the novel Transbaikalians. They say that he was the ataman, military chieftain of the Cossack village of Dura, Berkinsky. From time to time, he went to Harbin to sell butter. Maybe he found a Chinese woman there. Many in our family have a characteristic cut of the eyes. Ironically, I got to study Chinese at Moscow State University and then study and work in China. So there you have it. I think this story is definitely worth pursuing. But how? I'm sure that there have been UFO research projects in the times of Nicholas II. Please see the attached video of mine about the Cossacks and UFOs. But the information about such an encounter would still undoubtedly be classified. I am too cynical to believe in any pending disclosures and mistrust bureaucracies, whether in Russia, China, the United Kingdom, or the United States. It's something else, ladies and gentlemen. It follows from archival documents that mysterious aircraft appeared in the deep rear of the Russian Empire, so to say. A thorough study of archival documents plunges us into an amazement. UFOs in Russia were not only known, but also closely followed. There were people who closely followed these incidents, and not only in the capitals like St. Petersburg and Moscow, but also in the outback itself, from where, according to the writer Nicholas Gogol, you can ride for at least 7 years, you won't get anywhere. It would seem a crazy idea to look for reference to unidentified flying objects in 1914 somewhere in Kostanay region or the remote taiga dwelling. It turns out that there is nothing crazy about such an idea, especially if you watch my videos, which go back for centuries, observations. But Besides the extensive research conducted by Mikhail Gerstein, author and scientist, there was work, for example, of the two Tomsk, Siberia scientists, radio engineer Protasevich and geophysicist Kavinsky, who published archival documents from the funds of the Gendarmerie department. We're speaking about police department, the military department, and Cossack formations in their book Geophysical Background, Objects and Phenomena. In the Gendarmerie or police department, Gendarmerie, dossier files, there are also reports of UFO pilots who allegedly were no different from ordinary people. Remember what I told you in the beginning of this video. A resident of the Orenburg province, a certain Walid Muhamedov, said that on September 21, 1914, about 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, he left the ranger station on the Abzakovskaya road with hay to the Beloretsky plant factory. After driving away from the ranger station about 50 fathoms, something illuminated it and it became light, better than in the daytime. Looking up, he saw a flying object similar to a boat directly above him, in which 3 people in black high hats were sitting. 2 of them were sitting behind and 1 in front, and controlled the airship. He examined the latter better than the others and noticed well that there was a handsome man with a black, well-curled mustache aboard. The flying object did not make a special noise, but only puffed like a steam locomotive. When those flying on the airship noticed it, they immediately accelerated, began to climb up faster, and disappeared. In front of the flying airship, there was a very bright LED lantern that was the same behind. There was also 1 lantern in the middle on both sides, and around them there was a very bright mirror. When the airship disappeared, it was dark again in that area. Since the summer of 1914, Russian special services have been hunting for UFOs. The invasion of UFOs, for example, in the Samara Province, began early in the morning on July 23, 1914, when 2 airplanes flew over the village of Alexeyevka, as eyewitnesses called them, airplanes. According to observers, their flight was very fast. They did not disappear from sight for several minutes. A little later, residents of the village of Rождествено and the villages closest to it observed a flying big star with multicolored lights in the form of fireworks. From this very moment, information about strange aircraft would flow to the Samara Gendarmeria and police department in a continuous stream. On July 30, the temporary commander of the troops of the Kazan district, at that time the Samara garrison was under his jurisdiction, Major General Alexei Mavrin, informed his subordinates of a circular instruction. There are obviously aircraft in the district area, flights in the area of factories, and even the illumination of the city with a searchlight were repeatedly noted at night. I ask you to take measures to detect airplanes, and if possible, I order the troops to shoot at them. I ask you to offer the same to the guards. Arrest the pilots during the descent, notifying the population. At the same time, the general staff received intelligence information that there were secret hangars for airplanes in the Trans-Volga steppes or savanna. The Samara governor was asked to organize an expedition to search for enemy objects. By order of the head of the detective department, the best detective of the pre-revolutionary Samara, Dolganov, was sent to Samara, Samarskaya Luka. Dolganov's task was to collect information about airplanes and search for secret hangars. Please understand that even during the war with the Germans, Japanese before, there was no reason for them to go deep into European Russia. There was nothing of strategic importance there. And people mistook UFOs for aircraft because they couldn't explain or describe them any other way. This is all very interesting, and I urge you again to see my video about the Cossacks and UFOs. Look, maybe one day we will find out more if the archives ever get unsealed. And I've brought you other information about China, per se, Chinese research, and you can find it all in my channel. I thank you for your attention to my work. Please subscribe to it. Please support me through the links you'll find in the description to this video. And please tell others.